අද්විතීය 200 Mbps ස්පීඩ් එකකින් ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ වේගවත්ම සහ පුළුල්තම හෝම් බ්‍රෝඩ්බෑන්ඩ් සම්බන්ධතාවය වන SLT මොබිටෙල් දේශීය ෆයිබර් බලවේගය ඔබත් අදම අත්විඳින්න.
හරිම සුදුයි.
Tonight on First at 9, this Monday the 10th of July 2023. Express compensation. Supreme Court demands a report from the Attorney General pertaining to steps taken by the government in setting compensation to the affected parties from the Express Pearl disaster before the 15th of September. SME benefit. Former CBSL Deputy Governor is hopeful that the government's domestic debt strategy will provide more benefits to the SMEs.
Overall interest rate structure has come down and that has a positive impact on the SME sector.
AI for education. The Minister of Education says the country's education system will undergo a massive transformation. Bus tragedy. A fatal bus accident in Manampitiya claims the lives of 10. Police suspect that the accident may have been caused due to driver negligence.
Alliance Finance මෙතුරු රන්නයි සේවාවෙන් රන් පවුම්කට රුපියල් 1,70,000ක ඉහළ අධිකාරම.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දිනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9. I'm Shanella Fernando in your top stories for tonight. The Supreme Court has ordered the Attorney General's Department for a report pertaining to steps taken by the government in settling compensation to the affected parties from the Express Pearl disaster. The report has been requested for before the 15th of September. The directive was issued when a petition seeking an order directing authorities to pay compensation to the fishermen affected from the disaster was taken up for hearing today.
A fundamental rights petition filed by Cardinal Malcolm Ranjit seeking an order directing the authorities to provide financial assistance to the fishermen who have lost their income following the Express Pearl disaster was taken up for hearing before a three-member Supreme Court judge bench today. The attorney who appeared on behalf of the petitioner stated that the government is yet to provide compensation to the affected fishing community. However, Additional Solicitor General Nedim Pulle, who represented the Attorney General, said that the government has taken the necessary steps and they are progressing. A member of the three-panel judge bench, Justice Murdu Fernando, however, said that the steps need to be taken to expedite the compensation payment process. Further, the judge bench also ordered the Additional Solicitor General, who represented the Attorney General, to submit a report pertaining to the steps taken by the government to settle the compensation to the affected parties to the court before the 15th of September.
Sri Lanka is ready to implement the passenger ferry service between India and Sri Lanka via the Kankasanthore harbour. These were thoughts echoed by the Minister of Ports, Shipping and Aviation, Nimal Siripala de Silva. This, however, is predicated on approval required from India for the final execution of the project. Attending a media briefing today, he further added that 3 acres of land will be provided to facilitate the ferry service operations following the approval from India.
The problem is with India. We are ever ready and willing to start the ferry service. So then there is a joint committee according to a memorandum of understanding we have signed in 2011. That joint committee has to decide the modalities. There is no problem. We want the ferry service, but we have to improve the KK's harbour, for which the Indian government has given us $45 million US, and they have appointed their own consultant. We have put up a passenger terminal at our cost. According to the latest communication we had with India, they have indicated they can start the ferry service only from Nagapatnam. According to the security assessments and all these things with India, we have no problem. Whoever who approves India, we will accept. Moment the Indian government gives the green light, any ship or any person can come for me. So really more than canvassing us, you have to canvass India and get you in there and recognize you as the ferry operator. I met the Indian High Commissioner recently and he said there are 10 or 15 applications which has come to them. There will be some selection process there. I said you give these all 15 people to bring 15 ferry services. So then there is more competition. Then for the consumers and for the people who are using the service, there will be a good opportunity to get the ferry service at a lower cost also. You want land. I'll give you 3 acres of land. So the moment you get the approval for ferry service, I will preserve and keep 3 acres of land for any person who get the ferry service. We have to talk and come to the terms and then how we are going to share the profits, and you have to bring the investment and we have to prepare a joint venture company or something like that with the Port Authority, then move forward. So there is no problem from our part. So I was telling the State Minister also this situation. From your side, what is your position? Have you contacted the Indian authorities and all that?
Minister of Education Dr. Susil Premajayanta says that Sri Lanka's education system will undergo an educational overhaul resulting in transformation for essential measures to produce a caliber of students equipped for the 21st century. Addressing a media briefing today, the minister said that the country's education system will undergo reforms beginning early next year.
අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා තොරතුරු තාක්ෂණයට කෘත්‍රිම බුද්ධියත් එකතු කළා එන වැඩසටහන ක්‍රියාත්මක කරන්න 6 9 සහ 10 13 ඒ කටයුත්ත දැන්ට අපි ජාත්‍යන්තරව පිළිගත් මයික්‍රොසොෆ්ට් වැනි ආයතනවල අනුග්‍රහයත් ලැබෙනවා ඒකත් එක්ක අපි දැන් කටයුතු කරගෙන යනවා এডুকেෂන් ට්‍රාන්ස්ෆෝමේෂන් ඒ සඳහා අතිගරු ජනාධිපතිතුමා කැබිනට් අනුකමිටුවක් පත් කළා තිනවා එතුමාම සභාපති මේකෙන් කරන්නේ දැන්ට හදලා තියෙන ප්‍රතිපත්ති රාමුව මොකද දැන් අවුරුදු 5කට 6කට කලින් සකස් කරපු ප්‍රතිපත්ති රාමුවක් අද අපිට යාවත් කාලින කරන්න වෙනවා ඒ කටයුතු දැන් කරන් යනවා 24 මුලින් ඉඳලා මේ වැඩ පිළිවෙල ආරම්භ කරන්න සැලසුම් කරගෙන යනවා. උසස් පෙළ විභාගයේ උත්තර පත්‍ර සමීක්ෂණ කාර්යභාරය දැන් අවසාන අදියරට ඇවිල්ලා තිනවා. ප්‍රායෝගික පරීක්ෂණ කීපයක් කරන්න තියෙනවා. එතකොට අපිට අගෝස්තු මාසේ මැද භාගයේ වෙනකොට උත්තර පත්‍ර සම්පූර්ණ සමීක්ෂණය කළා ප්‍රතිඵල ප්‍රොසෙස් කරන මට්ටමට ඇවිල්ලා අවසන් කරන්න පුළුවන් වෙනවා.
Former Deputy Governor of Central Bank Dharmadhira Singh says that the government's decision to restructure domestic debt will result in further cuts in interest rates, thereby giving more opportunity for the country's SME sector to recover. In our segment Debt Treatment, What's Next, Dharmadhira Singh has said that the domestic debt restructuring provides the perfect time and platform for the government to look into macroeconomic issues within the country.
Looking at the whole process of this debt optimization or restructuring, I think this is an opportunity for the authorities to address other main issues in the macroeconomy like the inflation and fiscal issues. Now, as a result of this, the interest rate has been reduced and therefore it will have a positive impact on inflation, and the inflation already has come down, and also the government borrowing requirement is now reduced substantially. So the debt to GDP ratio will also be much lower than what it is now. And looking at the impact of this in the SME sector, starting with the COVID time, they were not able to pay their loans back to the banks. There were some relief measures introduced by the central bank. With this, the government or the central bank has the comfort to reduce the interest rates, and they slashed the interest rates recently also by 200 basis points. So the standing lending rate is 12%, standard deposit rate is 11%. So those are the policy rates, and as a result the overall interest rate structure has come down, and that has a positive impact on the SME sector. So those SMEs who were paying much higher rates of interest to borrow from the banking system now will have some comfort to borrow at lower rates of interest. So as a result of this, the economy will pick up, and the government is planning, and also they are looking forward to some positive impact on the economy as a whole, and for the economy to turn around and have a positive growth towards the end of the year. Perhaps the next year momentum will gather as far as the positive growth is concerned, so that will have overall a positive impact on all sectors of the economy.
Chief of President's Staff Sagala Ratnayaka said there are over 100 acts to be introduced in the coming year, adding that these laws are crucial for the people in order for them to regain balance in their day-to-day lives. Meanwhile, independent parliamentarian Patali Champika Ranawaka said that his party acknowledges that President Ranil Wickremesinghe was responsible for a change to the nation that resulted in the stability that the country is now enjoying. With that, here are some thoughts echoed by various parliamentarians today.
අනපනත් 100 ගානක් තියෙනවා මේ ඉදිරි වර්ෂය තුල ගේන්න. අමාරු වැඩක්. ඉතින් හැම එකක්ම අවශ්‍යයි අපේ රටේ ජනතාවට සාධාරණ ජීවිතයක් ගත කරන්න. අපි මේ පාරේ යද්දි කියන්න කරන්න දෙයක් නැති දේශපාලන පක්ෂ මේ ගමන කඩාකප්පල් කරන්න උත්සාහ කරනවා.
අද මේ රටේ ඕනේ තරම් නීති තියෙනවා. හොරුවල්ලන්න නැත්තේ නෑ. ප්‍රශ්නේ වෙලා තියෙන්නේ නීති අඩුපාඩුවක් නෙමෙයි. දේශපාලන අදිෂ්ඨානයක් නැති එක. හොරුවල්ලන්න අවංක චේතනාවක් තිබෙන රජයක් බලයට පත්වෙච්ච දවසේ තමයි ප්‍රයෝජනවත් යමක් අපේක්ෂා කිරීමට පුළුවන් වන්නේ.
අපි පිළිගන්නවා රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ මහත්තයා යම් කිසි ආකාරයක වෙනසක් යම් කිසි ආකාරයක ස්ථාවරත්වයක් ගෙනාපු බව. එතුමාගේ මේ ක්‍රියාකාරීත්වයේ තියෙන ලොකුම ප්‍රශ්නේ තමයි මේ අරුබුදයට අපිව දාපු ඒ කල්ලි කණ්ඩායම වලට අතවත් කියන්නේ නැතුව මේ අරුබුදේ බර අපේ සාමාන්‍ය ජනතාව පිට පැටවීම තමයි එතුමා කළා තියෙන බරපතලම අයුක්ති සහගත දේශපාලන ක්‍රියාව.
එතකොට මේ වැරදි තීන්දුව తీරන ගත්ත උදවිය අද කවුරුත් නැහැනේ ආණ්ඩුවේ. ඒ චෝදනාව කරන්න බෑ පොහොට්ටුවේ සීලම් මන්ත්‍රීවරුන්ට. එතන ඉන්නවා දක්ෂ මන්ත්‍රීවරු. තරුණ දක්ෂ ඇමතිවරු. ජනාධිපතිතුමා හැමතිස්සෙම කියපු කතාවක් තමයි මේ දක්ෂ තරුණ ඇමතිවරු ඉස්සරහට ගන්න ඕන. ඒ සඳහා තමයි හොඳ ඇමති මණ්ඩලයක් තියාගෙන ඉන්නේ.
A bus collided on the Kotalia bridge in Manampitia and toppled into the river, killing at least 10 people. According to Polonnaruwa Hospital sources, 41 persons are currently receiving treatment at the hospital. Rescue operations are underway to locate any more missing persons. The police suspect that the accident may have occurred due to the negligence of the bus driver, adding that the driver in question is currently under remand custody until 24th of July.
A bus travelling from Kaduruvela to Kathankudi endured a twist of fate that resulted in this tragic accident. At approximately 7:30 p.m. last evening, the bus in question had collided on the Kotalia bridge in Manampitia and toppled into the river. The police and area residents provide support to the operations to rescue the passengers inside the toppled bus and admitted them to the Polonnaruwa hospital. However, the incident ended up claiming the lives of 10 people. 2 of the deceased were students of the Eastern University in Trincomalee. Forty-one more injured persons are currently receiving treatment at the Polonnaruwa hospital. It is reported that approximately 50 passengers were on board at the time of the incident. With suspicion that there could be more missing persons, the Sri Lanka Navy also launched a rescue operation around the site of the incident. With the efforts of the police and area residents, the bus which toppled into the river was recovered last night. The police suspect that the bus driver's inability to control the bus due to speed and reckless driving may have resulted in this incident. The bus driver meanwhile was arrested by the police and was produced before the Polonnaruwa Magistrate Court. The suspect was remanded until the 24th of July.
මීට පෙරත් පොළොන්නරුව මූලස්ථාන පොලිසියෙම මේ රියදුරාට අන්තරාදායක ලෙස රියපැදවීම සම්බන්ධව යම්කිසි ආකාරයක දඬුවම් නියම කිරීමක් කරලා තියෙනවා. දැනට යම්කිසි කාලයකට පෙර ඒ නිසා මේ රියදුරාගේ නොසලකීමත්භාවය පිළිබඳව නිරීක්ෂණය වීමක් තියෙනවා. මේ රියදුරා මත්පැන් පානය කරනවා තිබුණාද කියලා පරීක්ෂණයට ලක් කරා. මත්පැන් පානය කළා තිබුණු බවක් නිරීක්ෂණය වන්නේ නැහැ. ඒ වගේම ඔහු යම්කිසි ආකාරයක විෂමද්‍රව්‍ය පානය කරලා තියෙනවද කියලා පරීක්ෂා කිරීම සඳහා අවශ්‍ය පරීක්ෂණ සඳහා ඔහු යොමු කරලා තියෙනවා. එහි ප්‍රතිඵල මෙතෙක් ලැබිලා නැහැ.
Meanwhile, the National Transport Commission said the bus in question is not registered with the Commission.
ගමනාගමන කොමිෂන් සභාවෙන් නම් අවසරපත්‍රය මේ බස් සංකේත දීලා නැහැ. පළාත් අධිකාරියකින් දීලා තියෙනවද කියලා අපි දැන් විමර්ශනයක් පටන් ගන්න තියෙනවා. ඉදිරියේදී නීතිය වැඩි කරනවා. මේ වෙලාව තියෙන බස් රථයටත් අපි නිසි දඬුවම් දැඩිව ලබා දෙන්න බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා.
26 estate workers were reportedly injured after a bus which they were travelling in veered off the Madakumbura Dunuketheniya road. The injured were admitted to the Kothmale Divisional Hospital for treatment. In Malawi, meanwhile, a 23-year-old youth was shot and killed after a group of individuals broke into the house, opened fire and fled the scene. With that, here are some other developments around the country in brief.
A bus carrying a group of tea estate workers veered off the Madakumbura Dunuketheniya road and toppled down a precipice yesterday, leaving 26 women injured. The 26 injured estate workers were admitted to the Kothmale Divisional Hospital for treatment. According to the police, the bus had veered off the road due to a mechanical failure. Meanwhile, a 23-year-old youth was gunned down in Palinagar in Malawi. A group of persons who allegedly broke into the victim's house last night had opened fire at the youth and fled the scene. The police stated that the investigations into the youth's murder are underway, adding that the site of the murder is under police protection, while the post-mortem examination is due to be conducted. Meanwhile, in Mathugama, 2 criminal gang members were apprehended as police suspicions confirmed the threat of a planned murder by the 2 persons in question. The suspects were arrested while in hiding. 3 sharp weapons, 15 grams of heroin and 5 mobile phones were seized by the police anti-corruption unit of the Kaluthara division. In Buttala, a surprising hailstorm was reported from the region. This natural phenomenon is reported to have taken place after consistent low-temperature rainfall had precipitated over a substantial period of time. Hailstorms are not particularly common for Sri Lanka and are earmarked as rare occurrences when they do happen. 50 students of the Hingurakkoda Primary School, a security guard of the school, and a teacher were hospitalized after being attacked by a swarm of wasps during the evening today. The attack had reportedly happened after the hive tied to a tree in the school was disturbed.
The central bank today has suspended the licenses of 15 money exchangers due to non-compliance. More on this story after this short commercial break. Stay tuned.
ගොඩමඩ පෙරලි කරන බලපුළුවන් කාරයා මහින්ද්‍රා යුවෝ ටීමෝ වෙතින්. වැඩම ගොඩයි ගොඩම තමයි. ස්වරාජ් ට්‍රැක්ටර් ටීමෝ වෙතින්. අපේ ගෙදරත් ආපිකෝ මෙට්‍රස් තමයි. මාදිලි රසකින් යුත් මෙට්ටලුවේ ප්‍රමුඛයා. ආපිකෝ මෙට්‍රස් සැපනින්දට සැප මෙට්ට.
Welcome back in more news. The central bank in a statement today said that it has decided not to renew the permits of 15 money exchangers for the year 2023. The CBSL said that the decision was taken due to the non-compliance of a condition of the permits issued for the year 2022 that was communicated to the respective money changers earlier this year. As such, the CBSL informed the public that the companies that were listed are no longer permitted to engage in money exchanging activities. Further warning the public, the CBSL asked to not engage in activities with the said companies, as buying, selling and exchanging foreign currency with such companies are considered as a contravention of the provisions of the Foreign Exchange Act. Ataya Asia, Thailand's budget carrier, resumed its operations between Bangkok and Colombo yesterday after a 3-year hiatus. Resuming its operations last night, Ataya Asia flight arrived at the Bandar Naga International Airport with 134 passengers on board. The airline will operate 4 flights per week between Colombo and Bangkok. During the first 6 months of this year, Sri Lanka has welcomed 2,072 Thai tourists. Further, the Airport and Aviation Services Sri Lanka noted a positive impact on tourism and cultural ties between the two countries, foreseeing a further increase in the arrival of Thai tourists. The Colombo Stock Exchange All-Share Price Index edged upwards as a result of price gains in counters such as Senkadagala Finance and John Keel's Holdings. The All-Share Price Index rose by 0.09% to end at 10,311.25 points, which is the highest the market has been since March 25th of 2022. Meanwhile, the S&P SL 20 dipped 0.61% to settle at 3,003.96 points, closing in red. The market generated a turnover of 2.1 billion rupees. The food, beverage and tobacco sectors were the top contributors to the market turnover, while the capital goods sector was the second highest contributor. The market generated a net foreign outflow of 105 million rupees. Global oil prices fell today as investors backed down after an economic slowdown in China and an anticipated rate hike by the US Federal Reserve. Steep losses were, however, limited with the expected crude supply cuts from Saudi Arabia and Russia.
Brent crude futures fell 40 cents to $78.07 a barrel during the trade, while the US West Texas Intermediate crude fell 40 cents to $73.46. Data issued by the Chinese National Bureau of Statistics showed that the producer price index fell for a ninth consecutive month in June, down 5.4% from a year earlier, the lowest since December 2015. Analysts expect consumer prices to fall 0.5% year-on-year in July, and headline inflation to rise to 1% by the end of this year. Meanwhile, in the United States, data issued on Friday pointed to the smallest job gains in 2.5 years, but strong wage growth. The figures will likely keep the US Federal Reserve on track to raise interest rates at its July meeting. Reuters said Saudi Arabia will extend its 1 million barrel per day output cut into August, and Russia will cut crude exports by 500,000 barrels per day. Instead of cutting output, Russia will be using the crude to produce more fuel to meet domestic demand. The cuts amount to 1.5% of global supply and bring the total pledged by OPEC Plus oil producers to 5.16 million barrels per day. Market participants said oil dealers may be awaiting the US Consumer Price Index and China's economic data that is expected later this week.
Now let's have a look at how the rupee traded against other major currencies during the day. Another phase of the AdaDerana program, which oversees the donation of equipment to hospitals, was implemented recently. As such, 2 ultrasound scan machines were donated to the Castle Street Hospital for Women and the Lady Ridgeway Hospital. The Case Environmental Group of Melbourne, Australia, provided sponsorship to the AdaDerana program in order to provide the much-needed ultrasound scan machines to the 2 hospitals. Following the donation, paediatrician of the Castle Street Hospital for Women, Dr. LPC Samankumara, said the donated scanning equipment will allow the hospital to successfully conduct brain scans and heart scans of newborns, subsequently paving the way for the early detection of anomalies which will result in lives saved. With that, we wrap up tonight's edition of First at 9. Thank you for joining. I'm Shanella Fernando. Have a good night.
For news and information you can trust 24 hours a day, visit AdaDerana.lk.